Hello everyone, my name is Marcus and welcome to another Warmane video. Today I am finally doing what so many of you have asked for. I am doing a guide on Protection Warrior in PvP. We're going to look at gear, we're going to look at talents, and we're going to look at some macros. So you might ask yourself, what's the difference between protection and arms in PvP? Well, there is a big difference. First of all, Protection Warrior has a lot more CC. Arms Warrior doesn't have nearly as much CC as Protection. But of course, as Arms you do get Bladestorm, which is also very nice. Protection Warrior benefits from a lot of utility that Arms simply doesn't have. So, in the right situation, Protection Warrior can be maybe more effective than Arms. So let's start and look at gear. You'll be glad to know that as a best in slot Arms Warrior, you will be able to use a lot of what you already have as protection. However, I would say that Protection Warrior has two main sets. You have a BG set and an arena set. Protection Warriors play with much less resilience than Arms Warriors. In BGs, you can see here, I run with 220 resilience. The reason for this is that Protection Warriors benefit from Last Stand, which paired with Enraged Regeneration gives me an extra very powerful defensive cooldown. On top of that, I have a shield, and I also have a bit more stamina, so I can survive for longer. Let's look at some of the equipment. We'll look at the BG set, and then we'll look at how I would maybe change that for arenas. So, the two main things you need to understand about this set for Protection Warrior is that we use the tier 10 DPS set because you have amazing stats, and your set bonus gives you a chance to increase your attack power by 16% for 10 seconds. And the tank set, you use it specifically for the set bonus. Your Shield Slam and Shockwave deal 20% more damage. This is one of the reasons why you see with Protection, you get really big crits. The off-pieces are very similar to Arms Warrior. We have Varisa's Dexterity, which is best in slot for Protection PvP and Arms. You have Penumbra Pendant from Ruby Sanctum 25 Heroic. You have Varisa's Dexterity, which is from the Trial of the Grand Crusader Tribute Chest, which is very difficult to get. Tosk's Maximized Wrist Guards are from Deathbringer Soulfang. Cold Wraith Links from Villithria Dreamwalker 25 Heroic, Ice Crown Citadel. And Apocalypse's Advance, which is also from Ruby Sanctum. Now, I've seen some different combinations of this set. I've seen people equip Flesh Shaper's Gurney Strap from ICC 10 Heroic, I think Festigut or Rotface, hits rating, and Arts of Armor Penetration. And the other option here, you see Blood-Soaked Saronite Stompers from Lady Death Whisper 25 Heroic, and that gives you some big stats. You can go up to, well, this is more than 100% armor penetration here. This is the main set here. We have Might of Blight, also from ICC, Frostbrood Sapphire Ring, this is from Villithria Dreamwalker, and you know these trinkets if you've watched my Arms Warrior guide. Deathbringer's Will from Deathbringer Sourfang, and a Sharpened Twilight Scale from Ruby Sanctum 25 Heroic. The main handpiece is Havok's Call, this is from Lich King 25 Heroic, and Ice Crown Glacial Wall, which is from Blood Queen Lanathel, also ICC 25 Heroic. The stats you want to go for are not that different from Arms Warrior, but there are some key differences. First of all, because you benefit from better defensive cooldowns and better defensive options, you don't need nearly as much resilience. In BGs, I can go down to as low as even 0 resilience. The only reason I don't have 0 resilience is because I have some resilience gems here, which I use for Arms Warrior, and I'm not going to remove that because Arms is my main spec. The other thing here, the same thing as Arms Warrior, you want to go for around 164 hit rating, ideally above 5%. And in terms of stats, you want basically strength, armor penetration, and crit chance. This is where the big damage comes from. That's why I use Deathbringer's Will instead of Whispering Fang's Skull, which is ideal for Arms Warriors in arenas. Deathbringer's Will gives you armor penetration. Sharpened Twilight Skull gives you armor penetration. The 2 rings give you armor penetration. The legs, Leg Plates of Etheric Strife, which is from ICC 10 Heroic, give you armor penetration. The tier 10 DPS PvE Fury set also gives you armor penetration. The neck gives you armor penetration. The braces give you armor penetration. The back gives you armor penetration. Basically, as much armor penetration as you can get. As a matter of fact, this set here sits at around 95% armor penetration. Ideally, you get 100%, but this you would get by possibly gemming armor penetration instead of resilience here that I have. A lot of it is quite difficult to obtain, but the truth of the matter is that if you want Prot PvP to be effective, you basically need these pieces because that's where the big damage comes from. I've played with this set in arenas and the damage is good, but it's not insane with the resilience people have. When you see videos of me one-shotting people with a protection warrior, it's usually with this set against someone who doesn't have that much gear. For this to be effective, you need tons of strength, which gives you block value. Block value buffs your shield slam ability, and the 2 pieces of tier 10 tank give you a shield slam and shockwave damage bonus. This is how shockwave and shield slam do so much damage. Let's now look at an arena set. I would replace the leg plates of Etheric Strife with the Wrathful legs, gives me 414 resilience, and then if I need even more, I would go Wrathful shoulders and Wrathful gloves, and then I would fix my hit rating in some way. So why do you do this? Well, if you want to do arenas, you still want to benefit from the tier 10 PvE bonus, which gives you extra armor penetration and extra crit. But the Wrathful pieces give you the extra resilience you need to survive a bit more. So 750 resilience is not too bad. You can, if you want, go all the way to 1k resilience. But at this point, you are purely utility. Again, I would need to, there we go, change to the Ashen Band or Signet of Twilight to get some extra hit rating. So you'd have to gem this a little bit better to get 170 hit rating. So I'd have full Wrathful here, and then I'm purely utility. I don't have the same damage or pressure that Arms Warrior has, but I do have excellent crowd control, so I can stun, I can silence, I can disrupt spells very easily, and I can do other things to help my teammates. So this would be more of a 1k resilience set. So let's have a look at some of the talents and understand what it is Protection Warrior can do. First of all, I should mention that my last video was a video showing an arena with Protection Warrior and how some of these tools are useful and can be used to really help your team. So let's look at some key things. First of all, let's look at Last Stand. When activated, this ability temporarily grants you 30% of your maximum health for 20 seconds. Now, I make a macro with this with, where is it here, Enrage Regeneration, that makes it so that because Enrage Regeneration is based on my maximum HP, this buffs Enrage Regeneration. You'll see here, if I use Enrage Regeneration here and Last Stand, this heals me for 1.3k each tick, which is quite powerful. Considering how much warriors need healing, having a self-heal that's as powerful as this is really useful. Let's look at another set of talents here. You have Improved Revenge. Increases the damage of your revenge ability by 60% and causes revenge to strike an additional target. I have sometimes one-shot 2 people with this. Revenge does an unbelievable amount of damage. It's really, really high. I've actually think my highest hits have been with Revenge and Shockwave, and more consistently Revenge does ridiculous damage. I suppose that when Blizzard made this ability, they weren't expecting tanks to use this in PvP, but yeah, it's really, really great. The next talent we want to look at is Improved Disarm. So it reduces the cooldown of your disarm ability by 20 seconds. That's 2 out of 2, and causes the target to take an additional 10% damage while disarmed. So if you're in an arena and the enemy doesn't have a rogue, a death knight, a paladin, or a warrior, so maybe it's a caster comp, then you can actually use your disarm on a mage, a priest, a druid to increase the amount of damage they take. So this can be part of your offensive setup. So you use disarm so they take more damage, and then you burst with your partner. The next one to look at, which is really, really, really powerful, is Improved Spell Reflection. Let's read this together. Reduces the chance you'll be hit by spells by 4%, and when the ability is used, it will reflect the first spell cast against the 4 closest party members within 20 yards. In the last video that I made, you'll see how effectively I was able to reflect Lava Burst from an elemental shaman, and he wasn't always casting it on me. So I can reflect spells from the person next to me, and in a 3 versus 3 arena, I can be close to my partner and reflect something on him. So if it's on my healer and he risks getting polymorphed, I can reflect a polymorph on the healer. I can reflect a hex on the healer. I can reflect a number of other types of CCs and really help save my teammates and avoid him using too many defensive cooldowns. This is really one of the spells in its buffed form that can make or break a fight. It's really powerful, and if you want to play Protection Warrior properly, you really need to learn how to use this properly and really make a big difference. Now, this is one of the key differences between Protection and Arms. You have much more CC. Concussion Blow is the first example of this. Stuns the opponent for 5 seconds and deals 1956 damage based on attack power. This is a simple single target stun, so you can force a trinket like that. You can really land on the pressure if you want someone to stop moving. Protection Warrior benefits from 2 main stuns, not just Concussion Blow, but also Shockwave. We'll talk about that in a minute. Next one here is a gag order, and in my Protection PvP video, you'll see how I was able to use this. It gives your Shield Bash and Heroic Throw a 100% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds and increase the damage of your Shield Slam by 10%. Let's say I'm stuck in a route. I see someone casting a spell. I can stop it with Heroic Throw because Heroic Throw silences. It's not an interrupt, it just silences the target. Shield Bash also silences. So if you miss an interrupt, or you're not able to interrupt someone, or you get fake casted, at least the person is silenced for 3 seconds. So spell casting is still difficult for them. Let's look at Safeguard. Reduces the damage taken by the target of your intervene ability by 30% for 6 seconds. In an arena, if you're in an arena or a BG and your teammate is taking too much damage, you can intervene on them, not just to take one of their spells or attacks on him, but to also reduce the damage they take. 30% is quite a lot, and it can really make a difference. This is another thing you need to learn to use as you play Protection Warrior. Next up, we have Warbringer. Your charge, intercept, and intervene abilities are now usable while in combat in any stance. In addition, your intervene ability will remove all movement impairing effects. That's right, if you use intervene, you get out of routes. So if there's a mage, if there's a druid using entangling roots, you can use intervene to one of your teammates and you remove all movement effects. So you're not slow anymore, you're not rooted anymore. It's really very powerful. This talent is also one of the reasons why Protection Warrior is easier to play than Arms Warrior, because you don't need to change stance to use charge or intercept or intervene. So you can stay in defensive stance, take less damage, and you'll be happier because you don't need 25 macros. Devastate is just an improved version of Sunder Armor. It does extra damage, and it can stack up to 5 times, just like Sunder Armor. And then, if you pair this with the Glyph of Devastate, which I actually forgot to put on for this video, I had another spec on that before then, but we'll actually add 2 stacks of Sunder Armor. It's easier to remove armor from plate wearers because you get 2 stacks, so you only need to use Devastate 3 times instead of 5 times to get 5 Sunder Armor stacks, which means it's easier to apply. And if you have an Arms Warrior with you, that means they do more damage because they have less armor. And lastly, let's look at Shockwave. Shockwave sends a wave of force and stunning all enemies within 10 yards in a frontal cone for 4 seconds. So let's have a look at how that works. Shockwave. And you see the animation that it creates. And it's roughly around this area. So it's like a triangle. You see my feet here. That's roughly where it goes. So you can see. And the power there is quite obvious. You can get 3 people in a Shockwave. Because it's not a target stun, it's a zone stun. You can get a double Shockwave, you can get a triple Shockwave, you can stun 20 people with Shockwave. So in World PvP, it's really powerful. In arenas, it can be game-changing, because if you get a triple Shockwave, which I have done sometimes, it's one of the most satisfying things in the universe. You can save your teammates, you can end a fight, because often or not, if I get a triple Shockwave, we either manage to survive, or we end the fight, or we force a lot of defensive cooldowns. In the Fury talents, you have Cruelty, which increases your crit chance by 2% here, 2 out of 5, and Armored to the Teeth. It should be noted that this is even more effective in Protection Warrior because you use a shield. So you have even more armor, and so you have even more attack power. And specifically for Protection Warrior PvP in the arms tree, you want Iron Will, which reduces the duration of stun effects, and Deep Wounds, so your crits cause a small bleed. But Protection Warrior isn't so much about bleeds. Now let's look at some of the Protection Warrior macros. Now, the Protection Warrior macros are much more simple. To be completely honest with you, there really isn't all that much to say because you don't need to change stances and everything. Macros are most important as an arms warrior. So if we look here, you see the shield wall macro isn't 5 lines. You don't have to equip your one-handed shield because it's already equipped. You see just defensive stance and cast shield wall. Then if we want to look at another macro such as my focus charge macro, you see I have, okay, target equals focus charge, target equals focus hamstring, cancel or a hand of protection. No stance changing though. So again, this emphasizes the fact that Protection Warrior is less awkward to play than Arms Warrior. Disarm still requires that you use defensive stance, but so like that I just use the same macro that I use for Arms Warrior, so I don't need to make a duplicate macro. Let's have a look at my charge macro. Again, no stance here. I don't need to use it because I don't need to change. If you look at some of my Arms Warrior macros in my month ago or so, you'll see that the protection macros are basically simplified versions of that. You see here, if I'm in stance 3, which is Berserker stance, I switch to battle stance and I use spell reflection. If I'm in defensive stance, I don't need to change stance because spell reflection requires battle stance and defensive stance. So like that, I make sure I do spell reflect, but again, very simple macro. I don't have to do anything in particular. For shield block, I have cast shield block and cast defensive stance. Again, simple. I don't have to change my my weapons. I don't have to change from my one-handed shield to Shadowmourne and vice versa. So again, very, very simple here. The one that I think is quite important here, you can see here, I mentioned this before, it's my last stand in regeneration macro. So I cast last stand and I cast Enrage Regeneration. Enrage Regeneration and Last Stand share cooldown. It's a great thing to use together, and they synergize quite nicely. Last Stand increases your maximum HP. Enrage Regeneration is based on your maximum HP, so you heal more when you're in Last Stand. So this is the perfect opportunity to use it. So in the coming weeks and months, I'm going to continue making videos. And in these videos, you'll see both Arms Warrior being played and you'll see Protection Warrior being played. And you'll see some of the utility that Protection Warrior has. If you haven't already watched my last video, I actually explain these talents in a bit more detail so that you can see how a Protection Warrior can be used in a 3 versus 3 arena and how it can be made effective. That's pretty much it. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day. If you found this video informative, please leave a like on the video. You can subscribe to the channel. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.